We got Tom here. We got Nathan, Vinny. Welcome, everybody. We got Mr. Gilbert there, fellow Canadian from the south of Florida there. Good to see you, pal. For anyone else that is this your first time joining us, my name is Adam McFadden with Firehouse Training and the Fire Mitigation Alliance. We have Peter Sells here as well from Fire Rain, Justin Brunner from Desasolve, and again, Tom Hockett, our leader here at the Fire Mitigation Alliance. So lots of good content that we're going to cover here tonight over the next hour or so, and really looking forward to just presenting some great content and then also getting some feedback from others that are working within different fire departments, either as property managers, firefighters, emergency managers, and even private industry that might have to deal with these type of risks that we will be speaking about tonight with electric vehicle chargers, and then of course that growth in infrastructure. So again, looking forward to having everybody here. There's Nathan there. Perfect. So we are recording this session as well, and I'm going to let a couple more people into the group. I'll just keep an eye on that. Oh, thanks, Justin, for doing that. Getting everybody's so for everybody, if this is your first time involved, please put your name and email address. We are going to be sending out some content after the event. We have some tactical worksheets that I like to provide, as well as some hazardous materials worksheets also for those that are currently working within their emergency service and just looking for some different tools when it comes to planning for these events. So again, super excited to present here tonight. A little bit about the Fire Mitigation Alliance group there. You got Tom, Justin, myself. Kind of left Peter out of that picture. My apologies for that, Peter. But basically what we do is we try to build these industry relationships through a core group of companies and looking to identify new firefighting tools, new firefighting strategies and tactics, different relationships we're building with everybody from insurance companies, emergency managers, property owners on a variety of topics. Although many times, many of you might be familiar with my company, Firehouse Training, where we do a lot of firefighting tactics and hazardous materials to private industry, health and safety. We are also looking at just evolving into the different realms where these relationships are being built, and as we are learning on the best ways to provide quality education and information to politicians, insurance companies, and other government entities that are involved in general public safety that we're discussing here today. So the best practices, building safer communities through education and collaboration is what we're all about. And obviously, when you look at the color of the sky on a day like today, it's more prevalent than ever when it comes to just ensuring strong public safety from communication and training. So with that being said, Tom, I might have you introduce yourself a little bit about the Alliance, if you can, a little bit about Amplicam, if you can, before we get started.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just was in Ottawa, and they had the red skies a day before you guys had it yesterday. So,
Oh, wow.
or today, I guess it was super red, super red and hot yesterday. So, it's a reality. We live in a wildfire and a fire world. So, there's risks everywhere. So, what the Fire Mitigation Alliance is a group of innovative, progressive, moving forward vendors of all types of services and products for fighting fires.
Mhm.
I come to the party as a wildfire mitigation guy with technology that is about detecting wildfire from a distance early. And the key to making sure fires don't get out of control, like some of them are in Northern Ontario this week, is you get to them early in the first couple hours, as opposed to too late, too long, and now they're out of control for weeks. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's with Amplicam, which is a partner of the alliance here, and they've been protecting Petawawa military forest and the nuclear facility in the town of Petawawa now for 3 years. So if you're in that area, you can say you're pretty safe from wildfire, but I can't say we're all across the country yet, but that's our goal. And headed back to you, and certainly growing this network of vendors and learners This is our ninth webinar that we've
Yeah.
recorded, and we're going to record. They'll be posted next week. They'll be recorded next week. So there you go.
No, it's good stuff. Again, so lots of good content that we've been able to provide throughout the various members. Justin, yourself, and Desisolve.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Welcome, everyone. Wow, I can't believe this is our ninth one already.
I've been consistent, brother. It's been good.
Jeez. We've been hammering these out. So, Justin, I'm the CEO and founder of Desisolve. We've created a platform for emergency services to aid in the creation of training and aiding training officers to develop consistent and realistic in-station, out-of-station training, utilizing AI platforms and then various knowledge uh, repos that we've created in terms of various products, tactics, skills and such. And really, the goal of what we're trying to do is give people time back, right? When we look at creating complex scenarios, even training, right, as a training officer and instructor, you can spend anywhere from 8 hours to 30 to 35 hours to create a scenario,
Yeah.
right? And our platform does that based off of your input. We're always key in keeping the human in the mix. And our platform takes that time down to less than an hour to create that scenario. It allows you to tweak and edit it to kind of make it your own, but it plays off of everything that you input into it. So your environment, are you a rural department? Are you an urban department? Right? Is this a wildland situation? Right? What kind of equipment and assets do you have? So all that information could be brought into our system, and then using that to create those scenarios based off of the NFPA standards, based off your SOGs, your SOPs, based off your tactics and playbooks, and then your training documentations like the JPRs and skill sheets that a department uses. So super excited to be here. We got a scenario. We're gonna road test a command tabletop exercise tonight. So it's gonna be
Nice.
pretty cool to see how this one turns out with all the emergency managers and firefighters.
We
And
got a few
hey,
chiefs.
even if you're
I see some fire chiefs names in here too that have snuck in from southwestern Ontario towards Ottawa too. So you'd be
yeah.
surprised. Good stuff. So the cool thing is with Justin's content is I'm able to at Firehouse Training integrate this into my classes for anything from hazmat to high rise to residential structure fires. He pulls the content right from the NFPA standard, which is makes my job a heck of a lot easier when I'm trying to run scenarios myself. Now I can just get Justin to do them for me. Peter, yourself, my friend.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Peter Sells. I'm one of the founders of Fire Rain. We're based in Eastern Ontario, and we produce uh, the world's only 100% certified 100% bio-based fire protection hydrogel. It's called EcoGel. And let me see what this little blurb says. Rapid suppression, reduced water use, and enhanced control for structural, vehicle, and wildland fires. And that basically says it all. And I'm also, I see, joined by my colleague, David Hindman this evening. David is our Chief Science Officer, and he's the brains behind the formulation that goes into EcoGel. So I'm here to answer any questions that may come up regarding how our products can help in these type of scenarios.
No, very good stuff. Very good stuff. And again, I think Justin did one of your colleagues just jump on the call too.
Yeah, actually, we've got Chris. I hope you're not still chomping on your dinner here after getting your kids back from sports, but if you want to jump on and do an intro.
Can adjust pretty quickly. All right. Evening, everybody. Appreciate you guys having me. As was kind of alluded to, Justin and I have been working together for a little while now. Taking Desisolve and expanding it. Where we intersected is I build adaptive teams for uncertain environments. And so that really involves the instruction and development of promotion processes, of coaching executive leaders, of developing firefighters. I work with both fire departments and police departments, SWAT teams, things of that nature. So sorry, a little bit on the cuff here. I'm trying to grab some dinner in between, so I apologize, gents.
Oh, it's great, brother. Good to have you. And then for myself, Adam McFadden, Fire Hose Training. We do training across Canada and the U.S. And most recently, over the last couple of years, I've had the chance to speak at various conferences when it comes to everything from hazardous materials to dealing with electric vehicles and lithium-ion batteries to high-rise firefighting to terrorism response. So lots of great content that we provide. So again, for everybody here tonight, please feel free to check us out on our social media or on our website after. And this is the cool thing. This is networking for all of us. So we got, Chris Gilbert here, emergency manager from the Florida area. We got some fire chiefs from Southwestern Ontario. We got paramedics from Peterborough. We have so many different individuals here. So if there's something you're looking for, reach out to us at the Mitigation Alliance, and hopefully we can put you in touch with the right person. So we'll jump right into it, guys. When we're looking at these lithium-ion battery devices, we know that they're everywhere: cell phones, laptops, e-bikes, e-scooters. Well, here's a quick story. Just on shift yesterday, we had an individual who thought it would be a bright idea to leave his laptop and his cell phone on the passenger seat of his car on a plus 36 degrees Celsius day, whatever that is in Fahrenheit for my American friends. Needless to say, that computer literally exploded, contaminated the entire car with HF acid gas, not to mention, ruin the interior. I bet you that car will be a write-off from the damage I saw from the amount of batteries that we had to pull from the laptops and cell phones just sitting in the front seat. This is serious stuff. So whether it's an electric vehicle charger, a battery energy storage system, a cell phone, a laptop, or an e-bike, many of us here know that these are risks to the public. When you're looking now at EV chargers, I'm gonna admit I am not an expert when it comes to the chargers itself, even though I do have a mechanical engineering background and I barely passed my college diploma 20 years ago. That was a long, long time ago. We know that with EV charging infrastructure, there's government incentives to continue accelerating this EV adoption. Things like telling the manufacturers of said EVs that they're now responsible for chipping in and putting in charging stations. That would be like telling the oil and gas companies they're responsible for putting in their own gas stations. This is kind of the way of some of the progression that specific governments are looking at providing the support and mandating, depending on what state or province you're in, the push for an electric vehicle. Commercial properties are installing chargers, residential charging systems, public charging stations, above ground, underground, you name it. We're seeing this infrastructure expanding. Now, as a first responder myself and being a firefighter and hazmat technician for over 15 years, if I wasn't going to conferences and meeting experts like Chris Gilbert and others, I wouldn't have the training from my own service to really know how to handle an event if we were dealing with a charger or an EV. Many of us have had to go out on our own to find out more information on what we can do to handle these situations. We see the rapid expansion. We know it's a challenge for firefighters. We know that in today's evolving risks, there's best practices for prevention and emergency response, but how specific are we? I might put you on the call here, Chris, from Florida, again, fellow Canadian from the Thunder Bay area. From an emergency management perspective, if I can ask you, have you seen much for training, content, or education in the state of Florida on the chargers themselves and maybe risk assessments and hazards for firefighters or responders? Have you seen much of that in your neck of the woods?
The last couple of years, we've been doing EV symposiums and that, trying to get the information out through the Florida Fire College. Matter of fact, we'll have another one in September here. And again, trying to spread that information out to not only to the fire departments, but also to the local officials. You'll find certain key areas in that, like here in Alachua County, where we've gone above and beyond, and we're requiring proper labeling and education to those agencies and that for their responses. I mean, I'm seeing an average of 5 residential ESS photovoltaic applications every day.
They're coming up. And again, I asked the wrong guy because Chris is actually very proactive being in his position in the state. And Chris, if you do get a chance, put in the group chat there, just that event coming up in September. I tried to look at my schedule to make it down there, but unfortunately I'm double booked. But this is the kind of content that you can get in addition to tonight's training from specialized individuals like Chris, who are a part of these organizations that oversee it. So when you look at these hazards, the EVs, the e-bikes, we think of things like, what are the early indicators of thermal runaway? Is it the white toxic smoke? Is it a boomer woof? Is it the smell of cherry bubblegum in the air? All these things that might occur because of a thermal runaway event for batteries. And then you ask yourselves, when the fire departments arrive, do we have enough water? Do we have enough staff? Do we have containment and disposal considerations for cleanup? So these reignition risks in the post incident management is a huge miss. It's a huge miss in my opinion. I guess when you look at things like battery energy storage systems, again, this was a slide from our previous Fire Mitigation Alliance event. We look at big picture events. If we have something this large, or multiple chargers on fire in an underground parking garage, or even a parking lot where somebody struck multiple chargers, maybe a transport truck or somebody drove into them to cause harm. Do we have the resources to understand enough about that technology to shut it down, to communicate to on-site staff, what the risks are, to manage something that would be such a long duration event? So when you look at the charging technology, I might throw this at you, Justin. You're from a smaller community. When it comes to your answer compared to Chris's, and you're a technology guy, obviously you created Desisolve. From a technology perspective, can you tell me what is your opinion with firefighters and the understanding of not just the lithium ion batteries and the EVs, but then getting into the chargers, the infrastructure, and tactics for that?
Yeah, it's limited. In our area, I know of 2 charging stations that are available to the public.
Yeah.
Do we know where the shutoff is? There's probably a few people that do know the building, right? But being proactive, that's the big thing. We are setting up a lot more site tours. We are getting around to places, and we do have a good list of questions that we do ask. So those things do come up, just like we treat any of the larger scale operations and farming operations here. We want to know where the hydro shut off. We want to know where the gas shutoffs are, right? We need to include that in these buildings. If they have charging stations, how can we cut it off? Do we need to go directly to the panel? Is there a secondary shutoff that we have access to? What are the things that we can do, right? And if we can't access those, it's a quick call. We get hydro out as quick as we can, and we're shutting that off at the road.
So when you're thinking about these chargers, and again, Chris Gilbert, if you have knowledge on this or others, please correct me if I'm wrong. When it comes to these chargers and the modules inside, they're all different. We know about the hazards with lithium ion batteries. They may or may not have a BMS system in them to manage energy. There could be cooling plates. Some have a liquid electrolyte in them. Some don't. Some are into multiple modules. Some are in packs like this. Of course, this ripped apart, and I got nervous when that happened in the back of my truck one day when I hit a big bump, but that's another story. I should probably use that in the shed tonight. The point that I'm trying to make here is that when you think about the technology with the batteries themselves, many of us are familiar with that. We know about the high heat, the explosion risks, the rekindle chances that could happen not just minutes or hours later, but possibly days later. So when you look at how the technology changes and how every module is different, we have to ask ourselves, if we know there's so many different battery modules, how the heck am I going to know the difference between these charging systems? How am I going to know what is a risk inside of these devices? You look at level 1 chargers, household outlets, slow overnight charging. You look at my good friend Patrick Durham at Stash Training out of Michigan. He has over 90,000 subscribers on YouTube with his YouTube channel on battery safety. He says that the issue isn't the chargers, it's the old infrastructure inside the houses with the old copper wire and everything else that is unfortunately underpowered to handle some of these new chargers that are being installed. Many of them are not being installed by licensed professionals, electricians, and what have you to do this properly. When you're looking at these level 2 chargers, whether it's homes, condos, workplaces, again, 208 to 240 volts, understanding the local infrastructure, understanding its capabilities, whether it's an old or a new area, a new high-rise building or a shopping mall, we're not technicians. We're just the firefighters showing up, putting the wet stuff on the red stuff. But we do need to understand some of the basics. And I find that that's a great big challenge to us as responders. The DC fast chargers, are we considering more of the voltage or the current when it comes to the risk for us? In my opinion, when I'm seeing big fast chargers in shopping malls and high rises, usually in the city of Toronto where I'm at, I can't find the shutoff. And if I do find the shutoff, usually it's too close to that charger itself. So it was on fire or burning. You're probably not going to be able to get to it anyway because it's too close to the risk itself. So with multiple charging stations, do they all share one electrical distribution system? Do different chargers present different hazards? Well, yeah, they do. And I'm not going to be able to share every single one of those hazards with you here tonight. We can look at the components. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry, buddy.
Okay. Yeah. So when I was in Ottawa, the guys I was staying with are in a condo. And we were talking, as we came out of the garage, I was saying, well, where's your charging stations and what's going on? He was fairly knowledgeable, I think, because some of the things I've said to him over the years dealing with you guys. Yeah. And he said he had been telling the board, we need to, have these charging stations near the exit and maybe not inside and all that stuff. So they did a lot of research to where to put things and do everything in their garage. And what did they do? They just didn't listen. And it's like that's a nightmare waiting to happen. but I think this happens all over the place. It's like there's data and information, and yet it gets ignored.
Well, this is just it. And in the world of hazmat, we call it building the plane as we fly it, right? We're trying to figure out, how we're going to handle this infrastructure, deal with it from an emergency response perspective, and then get that education and training out to firefighters, law enforcement, and others that are interacting with these modules. You look at different utility transformers. In these type of charging stations, you have what's called an electrical switchgear, distribution panels, charging cables, and connectors. Now, many of them have built-in interlocks and ground fault protectors. But the one thing that confused me, and if anyone here has more knowledge than me on the modules themselves, and for me as a responder, when I'm showing up and I see this charging station, I see this plastic facade, and I can't see behind the main door to that unit. I ask myself, is there packs of lithium-ion batteries and modules in there that are holding energy, or is it directly integrated into the electrical grid? Because many times, and I was confused, and I was in the understanding that many of those chargers were full of lithium-ion battery racks as well that store the energy, but that's not necessarily the case. Chris, in your neck of the woods, do you have much of a knowledge on what is actually made up of these charging stations? Do many of them or any of them have lithium-ion batteries in small modules to store energy, or a lot of them just powered right into the grid?
A lot of them are powered directly into the grid, and that now, of course, the thing you get is when you get into residential, if they've got a Tesla Powerwall 3 or an EG4 or any of the other types of battery packs, if they lose main power, they backfeed through that. It's one of the biggest hazards, which, of course, one of the things we've implemented in our county is I've mandated that they have to mark not only the batteries on the external to show what type of battery it is on every one of them, but at your breakers as well as at your meter, that it is a dual or a tri-powered source. So photovoltaic battery. So if you pull the meter to kill the house, you're aware that there's still other things feeding back in and the house is still energized.
Well, that DC energy, right? And we see that all the time, the solar panel challenges. I know the last class we had with everybody here, we did talk a bit about the solar panels and those risks, but keep in mind that constant energy, that direct current is going to be running into a panel, even if a firefighter shuts it down or they mitigate it in some way. If there is sunlight going into these panels, and then though those wires are still considered live, we need to have alternative solutions for that. And many firefighters don't know that by having some firefighters climb up to the roof and throwing a tarp over it, that could help because you're limiting sunlight. There's new products out there called PV Stop, based out of Australia, that's coming to the US as well, where you can use these. It's a black spray, almost like a tar, that you can spray, and once it covers 60% of the solar panel, it minimizes the energy going into that level 1 or level 2 charger in the home. But these are options, again, unless you meet someone like Chris or others and you go to these conferences, you just wouldn't know that these options are available. Overloaded electrical panels, improper extension cords, damaged charging equipment and cables, poor ventilation. That's another big one. Remember, when these gases build up inside these modules, even a garage for that matter, with an EV that might be going into thermal runaway, the explosion hazards from the toxic gas is also identified as a flammable gas. And many people don't know that if it's not ventilated properly and it builds up, in behind the door box of a charger or inside that of a garage, the explosion hazard is the real risk, not just the fire itself, because it's not ventilated. So looking at things like having these devices properly installed, having them certified by ESA. There are many individuals out there right now, especially at the cottages and other areas in the province or in the US, that are doing the DIY projects, and it's causing a lot of issues. Little quick story, my good friend Patrick there at Stash Training had a colleague call him and said, hey, I got this big battery module that I built. It's starting to short out on me, and I'm using it for my solar system and to power my cottage. I know it's at the end of life. I know I can't repair and reuse it. How do I get rid of this? Do you know how big of a challenge that is to get rid of it? I'm not talking about the containment and disposal side, whether it gets recycled, sent back to China, or thrown in the bottom of the ocean, right? Depending on what you do with it. I'm talking about just disassembling it safely without getting hurt. That is the issue. So when we see thermal runaway risks, when we see these other challenges, we need to understand that some people, if they didn't install it themselves, they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. No pun intended. So what do we know about the lithium-ion battery behavior? We know that thermal runaway can create that sustaining fire growth, but why is that? Many people don't know that when these batteries ignite or go into what's called a thermal runaway, the main issue that we see is when there is a problem with the separator. Now, the separator is on the inside of that battery that basically manages the ions going back from the anode and the cathode to manage that battery power. If it's damaged in any way, if it's dropped, if it's in a hot environment, cold environment, if there is moisture on the inside, otherwise known as dendrite growth for these types of battery issues, all of those potential problems can cause this battery to go into thermal runaway. And that's where we're seeing more risks in the community. It could be a landscaping company that I taught that has a handful of battery packs and tools that are sitting in the back of their pickup truck on a hot summer day that goes boom and whoom. It could be the cell phone or the laptop that we saw inside of the interior of the vehicle just yesterday that caught fire. It could be the e-bike that unfortunately a child's been hit by a vehicle, impacting that battery, causing it to go into thermal runaway. It could be a drone battery hitting the ground very hard and causing that physical damage. We are seeing more and more calls for this. And whether it's the fire department, emergency managers, containment and disposal companies, we have seen an increase, and people are looking for more and more answers. So again, I know we don't just have firefighters here tonight, but I do want everyone to understand that when it comes to fire department considerations, I'm going to throw a few ideas out at you. Again, many of you probably have your own different ways. We got things like our fire blanket, right? We got our fire blanket here. We have what's called a fire shield, potentially to assist in managing or protecting exposures. We have another device that comes with this. Again, it's a little messy. Oh, I got to be careful here because it blew open last time. This is called a basically it's cell block. It's basically a recycled glass, and it's very thick. And you can lay this over top of a cell phone or a laptop or anything that might be on fire as a way to manage or filter, depending on who you ask and what testing body you're talking to, filter the dangerous toxic gases that come from these fires. We have other things that have been proven here, depending on who you ask and depending on testing. Fire suppression tools like a fire grenade. The reason this is an option is this aerosol, based on current white papers, have shown that it has the ability to knock down lithium-ion battery fires in small confined spaces or in marine emergencies. Now, Peter, I might bring you up with some of your products at EcoGel. If you could talk a bit about the options that you provide whether it's utilizing EcoGel through a fire department pumper or even other avenues such as wildfires to flammable liquid fires. What are some of the benefits of the EcoGel as a response option for these batteries or for these charging stations?
Well, the main advantages of EcoGel are that it absorbs a tremendous amount of heat because it is primarily water. You're going to mix it anywhere from 1 to 4%, 6% in some cases. So at any rate, it's still, in excess of 95, 96% water. But it sticks and stays in place instead of running away. So it has the ability to absorb a tremendous amount of heat. And also, by virtue of its stick and stay property, it can coat a complex three-dimensional surface. It'll stay on a vertical surface, an overhead surface. So it's got the advantage to protect exposures in that way. But also, with respect to the actual thermal runaway, the main action is that it pulls heat away.
Yeah.
I think we all know that you can't get into the battery. You can't get into the actual chemistry of what's going on with the thermal runaway and interrupt it like you can with a fire triangle on a piece of wood. But uh, it's a great way to pull away a lot of heat and, as I said, protect exposures. David, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Welcome, David.
Good evening, all. Not a lot. I mean, we've been doing evaluation scenarios both on like EV fires and on BESS installations because the battery energy storage facilities are currently coming online in a big way.
Oh yeah.
And the two applications for our product are coat the BESS unit that's on fire to contain that heat
Mm-hmm.
and coat the adjacent structures, adjacent battery units, or other structures to provide an insulating barrier to any heat that is still getting through. And that actually rolls over into other scenarios, like you've got, as was talked about, the EV chargers in the basement of a high rise. Coat the Tesla or Leaf or whatever that's on fire, coat the cars that are beside it, but also can coat the cement infrastructure of the building
Yes.
to prevent, catastrophic explosions due to excess heat actually blowing out, the concrete. So it's that, to Peter's point, that stick and stay, but also stick and stay providing that barrier of heat mitigation from the active unit and from the surrounding stuff that you want to save. I'll stop there.
Sure, Adam. You also asked about application, and
Yes.
we've designed the product to be compatible with existing fire department methods and equipment. So the best recommendation we've got right now is inline eductors, and basically use the existing fire stream, use an inline eductor like you would for any water additive that you've used in the past,
Nice.
and you can get a good result that way. We also are working on getting the EcoGel into air over water portable extinguishers.
Yes, I remember
So
that.
yeah, yeah. So that's basically the nutshell.
No, that's good. Again, thanks, Chris Gilbert. He's lighting up the chat there with some good pictures. Everybody check that out. Chris's question, are we seeing lots of lithium-ion battery fires and car fires? Because I'm in the biggest city in Canada, I'm seeing them every day. I had 3 in my last shift alone. E-bikes, e-vehicles. I'm not saying we're doing things perfect in the big city. I'm not. I'm saying I'm getting the sets and reps in to figure out what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, right? By the way, Chris Gilbert, you should reach out and Peter and David there. We got to get those guys down to your conference in Florida. I think there'd be a lot of value to come down to Daytona in the fall. I know I mentioned that to you before, Peter, but Chris is also the conference coordinator at the Daytona Beach Hazmat Conference. And you never know, I might even hook you up with a good price on a booth or something. But yeah, talk to each other, please, because with Chris's background and what Peter's doing up here in Canada and David is pretty awesome. So again, going on what David said, you look at these underground parking garage challenges, right? Like you have to ask yourself, as a first responder, do I have enough foam? Do I have eco gel? Did I focus on ventilating the area enough to not have to evacuate the entire high rise because of the amount of smoke that's now getting into the HVAC systems? Should we limit elevator use for that piston effect that causes the vapors and gases to go from floor to floor? Now, as a firefighter, again, I'm kind of talking high-rise tactics here, and my mindset is I want to limit my time and ability to use an on-site standpipe. I might not get the volume I need. I might not get the pressure I need. If I'm running eco gel, I'm going to run that through an adductor from my fire truck, which means I might be stretching a 2.5-inch line with a big old smooth bore all the way from ground level down to the P3 level to deal with a charger fire or a battery fire on an EV. And it also gives me an egress on the way to get out if I get lost down there. We had a parking garage fire just last week. They're one of the scariest fires you'll ever be in. You got to hear me out, because there's no ventilation, guys. I've been a part of crews where we got lost because we couldn't find a standpipe. We've been a part of crews that decided, you know what, I'm going to walk the parking ramps all the way down, which is a lot longer, by the way, especially after a big fire department lunch. We walk it that way. Well, guess what? You encounter smoke. Now you don't have the protection of a stairwell. So you don't have a hose line. You don't have rescue rope. And you're just walking around in the smoke. The other issue we had the other day, nobody knew where the ventilation for the HVAC system was, not only for the building, but to ventilate smoke from the parking garage. So the reason I'm bringing this up tonight about the chargers, and you've seen this, Tom, I know you talked about this and others as well. I'm not sure what it's like in Florida for Chris. We are seeing these electric vehicle chargers on the P2, P3, P4, and lower levels, while some property managers are looking at only having them installed on the P1 level close to an exit or exterior only. Depending on what ordinance you're looking at, it's a bit of a dog's breakfast. But I can tell you right now, and I run full-day courses on high-rise and industrial firefighting specific on what a firefighter should do if they encounter a below-grade fire like this. And believe me, it's not easy. Hose lines, staffing, radio communications. We had a hazmat call yesterday below grade, and I wasn't too happy with one of our officers because they did not have the repeater turned on so we could go into what's called a fire ground or talk around channel. So when I was downstairs, we actually had a bad refrigerant leak at a grocery store in the city. I couldn't communicate to my captain what we were doing and if we were okay or not. Not good. So radio comms is another issue. Chris, I might put you on the spot. What are your thoughts when you see these challenges of the EVs and the chargers when you're looking at below grade? Do you agree with a lot of the assessments that I made? Like, these are things that firefighters don't think about sometimes until it's too late.
Absolutely. Biggest thing we're pushing down here is exterior, position only. We've seen so many incidents inside the parking garages, and once you got a fire in there, you're basically destroying that infrastructure. You get concrete spalling and all the rest of that. You've now totally devastated the engineering specs for that structure. So again, it's a massive issue if you have a fire underground, and you can put as much water as you want on it. You're not going to put it out. You're just protecting exposures as much as you can until it goes out, or you latch onto it and you drag it out, which is the other go-to that we've been doing down here in Florida.
The water management, the containment and disposal side of things. Again, Peter's idea and David talking about tactics with the eco gel. And I love what David said, coating the concrete. You look at Brussels over in Europe there, basically that whole parking garage and facade collapsed because of the spalling and the cracking of the concrete just from the heat. And not just the heat from the fire, But if you look at good old firefighter 1 and 2 training, you know that spalling also occurs when you make something hot really, really cold, and then it spalls and cracks. But these are things that, again, even with a 4-hour rated time frame, you're like, well, there's no way that fire could get so hot it burns through the concrete. No, everybody, you're missing the point. When the average EV Denali or Hummer is between 8 to 10,000 pounds and you have a little bit of heat on that concrete, now you got the weight to deal with. It's almost 3 to 4 times the average vehicle capacity. Again, it's an issue.
Adam, have you had any experience running into the path system in downtown Toronto?
Oh yeah, it's not fun.
Let me just explain for everybody. In Toronto and in Montreal and probably in some other northern cities in Europe, there can be underground systems that connect buildings to buildings to buildings. So in Toronto, you can go from the main Union station, the railway station, downtown, and walk underground. What? Probably 2 miles
or more. Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, all the way up. I mean, I won't tell you the streets because it won't mean anything to you. So all of these systems, or if you've got an underground metro or an underground subway system in your community, or the best case scenario here is an underground parking lot, and an underground parking lot fire is hell. The air handling systems for all of those installations are based essentially on moving cubic feet per minute of air. The problem is with the fire, and it's exacerbated with the type of fire we're talking about here, is you're not dealing with normal air. You're dealing with hot air that contains a lot of heavy, heavy smoke and particulate. Even more so if it's a battery type fire. So both the density of the particulate in the air and the amount of heat being carried mess the thermodynamics totally, and essentially make the assumptions that air handling system was spec'd on inadequate. So under test conditions, under like on a blueprint, they're going to be able to handle air movement. But under the worst fire conditions you can imagine, they probably will not be able to efficiently handle the amount of heavy, toxic, hot material that's coming off from the fire.
Remember, everybody, that's a perfect segue into the slide, Peter. This is a hazmat event. Yesterday, when that individual thought that he was going to get in that vehicle after this front seat was burnt out and it was coated in this black soot, and he thinks that he's going to drive it to the mechanic or have the insurance company come to do an assessment or handle it himself, I said, you realize that entire car is contaminated now. The HF gas, that HF acid gas they call it, the carbon monoxide, the hydrogen cyanide, all the other components that come from these batteries has now contaminated the unit. And again, I'm not saying we're doing things perfectly. Think about my situation. Chris Emery in the chat brought up a question. What about a vacuum cleaner? What about a power tool? What about an e-bike? If they catch fire in your unit and the firefighters show up and put the wet stuff on the red stuff, sounds pretty simple. Just like a pot on a stove, maybe a child played with a match, you got a little bit of a burnt teddy bear in a couch, good enough. Wrong. Everything that smoke has now touched is toxic. The walls, the kitchen cabinets, your TV, everything. And I'm going to be as blunt as I can about this. Tom knows this as well, dealing with high-end government officials, insurance companies, and others. I know this from dealing with insurance companies also for some battery training. They don't have a clue about the hazardous material risk that still occurs after these fires are out. And what's happening here is whether it's EV that's been in a collision with a minor fire where the battery's been replaced and they throw some paint and some new fenders on it and it goes back out to auction. It might look good in theory, but unless it was properly cleaned or decontaminated, right? A room, a vehicle, a child's laptop or cell phone that's been in the exposed area of something else that is burned that has a lithium ion battery in it, it is all still considered a hazmat. And people don't know that. Not people. You people are here with us tonight training. I'm talking about insurance companies, government officials, property managers, and others that want to get back to normal life or normal business. Chris, I know you were shaking your head up and down there. Do you understand what I mean when we're talking about like the insurance companies and others taking shortcuts and not really giving people the right advice, not knowing the seriousness and cancer-causing carcinogens of this hazmat?
Not well educated on any of it in any way. I mean, even our fire departments, going back to the station and just washing your gear does not 100% decon your gear. You're only at about 30% deconned, unless you're using carbon dioxide or one of those other processes to fully get you down to like 99%. You're putting on dirty gear. And so it's the same with insurance and people. We have to explain to them after each event and that your facility or your apartment, and that's going to have to be deconned by a remediation company. And it's not going to be cheap.
So ask
20,000, 50,000.
This is it. And again, it's the cost, it's the time. So let's do a quick scenario here. We have an electric vehicle that's on fire attached to a charger outside of a mall parking lot. First in crews arrive, it's smoking slightly, and they decide, well, there's not much smoke. We're just going to leave our mask off and we're going to get a firefighter to maybe move that vehicle. They'll work in and around that area to find the shutoff, but nobody's on air. They don't understand that just a little bit of toxic smoke that's in the air has these itty bitty pieces of metal, the cobalt, the nickel, the manganese, everything else that is making up these batteries that is now floating around the air, sitting in their gear, getting into their lungs, even for a few short seconds. So asking yourself when you're on scene, should you be wearing your mask at all times to anticipate a larger thermal runaway? Should we be wearing our bunker gear as opposed to having an incident commander maybe on the outside of that hot zone or control zone, we like to call it, who thinks that he or she is in a safe location, but not understanding that when the wind shifts, they've all been exposed to that hazardous smoke. We've seen law enforcement officers get hurt because of that breathing in of smoke. We've seen, again, we're still in the infancy, but we're seeing record numbers of cancer from different types of battery events that firefighters have been exposed to in the last couple of years. So again, treating this as a hazmat and having a plan in place is super important. When it comes to these community risks and best practices, we need to have plans. We need to have a response plan. We need to have emergency access. We need to talk about proper signage. We need tools, right? So I guess with that being said, I might have Justin kind of do a bit of a short scenario here, and we can just discuss what some of these considerations would be. And again, there's no wrong answers when it comes to having a game plan. We just need to have a game plan in a proactive setting like we are tonight, not being reactive and having a firefighter sit on a hose line for 10 hours while we wait to find out if there's still heat in the battery, or we wait for the local disposal and containment company to arrive on scene. We need to be better than that. So, Justin, do you have some type of scenario that you can maybe put us through tonight in regards to hazmat batteries and whatnot that we can maybe implement some of this content?
Yeah. And before we jump into that, you make a really good point with the community risk reduction too. The education piece. I mean, how many videos have we seen online where somebody's grabbing a battery and running it outside, and what are they sucking in that whole time?
Yeah.
Right? Just leave it. Get out. Don't grab it and huff more of it. Right? Even the community needs to know more about it.
They do.
Okay, so for tonight then, what we'll run through, so we're on the EV topic, so we'll stick to that one. So we'll set this up as more of a tabletop exercise. I'll lay out a scene description of what we're coming into,
Yep.
and then I'll relay in some of the dispatch messages and things like that, and kind of walk us through the event. And then we'll have these injection points where we can have that moment to sit and talk about what we're going to do, what our tactics are going to be.
I like it.
Okay. So for tonight, we've got an incident on Harwick Drive. It's a residential street in a suburban neighborhood. The address is a single-family dwelling with an attached double garage. The burning electric vehicle, a full-size sedan, is positioned in the driveway. And for the non-fire folk, for the sides of a house, we're using Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. So Alpha is going to be our front side, Bravo then going to be our left, Charlie would be our rear, and so forth. Um, Sorry, now I've lost my spot. Yeah, position in the driveway on the alpha side of the structure, approximately about 4 meters from the garage door.
Yep.
The driveway runs perpendicular to the street and is wide enough for one apparatus to stage at the alpha side. A second apparatus would have to be staged at the street level. Okay, the structure sits on a standard residential lot. To the Bravo side, we have a wooden privacy fence that separates the property from the neighbor, and that's about 8 meters away. To the Delta side, an unattached garden shed is located approximately 6 meters away from the vehicle's rear quarter panel. To the Charlie side, the rear yard is open with no immediate exposures. Okay, we have a municipal hydrant located on the Alpha side, approximately 30 meters south of the driveway. Electrical services enter the structure from the overhead lines on the Bravo side of the dwelling. There's no natural gas, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so we'll go to our dispatch messages. So that gives us a sense of what the scene looks like.
I'm
Okay, so
putting
all
this in the
units.
chat too, guys. I'm typing this fast in the chat. I'm giving synopsis if you guys want a quick review. But yeah, keep going, Justin.
Perfect. So we got all units, fire alarm 2847 Harwick Drive. Caller reports vehicle on fire in driveway. One occupant self-evacuated, reported uninjured, waiting at street. Vehicle described as electric vehicle, smoke visible from underside. Units responding, engine 1, 2, aerial 1, chief 1. So we have our first arriving officer and the report. So we have engine 1 on scene. We have a full-size electric sedan in the driveway, alpha side of single-family dwelling with attached garage. Heavy smoke from beneath the vehicle battery area, and visible flame from the undercarriage. Garage door is closed. One occupant confirmed at street. Ambulatory, no apparent injuries. Wind is Bravo to Delta side. Engine 1 is establishing command. Second due engine, come in on Delta side on the street. Aerial stage at Alpha Side Street and await assignment.
I like it. Can I go first?
Yep.
All right, so I'm a cheater, right? I like to cheat. So again, I have my firehouse training tactical worksheets here for EV and hazmat, and I will tell you right now the reason I'm a fan of these, not to toot my own horn, is I've worked with fire chiefs that are amazing at hazmat calls when they use the sheets like this. The chiefs that I've worked with that aren't good at hazmat calls, they use their sheets like this, which means they don't use them. And I'm telling you, you need to have a plan. So right off the bat, we'll get things started. I know based on the toxic gases that are available, our ERG guide says we should probably set up an isolation distance from a smoking EV of a minimum 100 meters, whatever that is in feet, 330 feet, I think, right? So for our American friends, 25 meters if it was a solid, 50 meters if it was a liquid, 100 meters or 330 feet if it was a deadly vapor, a hazmat vapor. We don't even know what the vapor is yet. We just know it's bad. Justin already mentioned that we got a couple apparatus on scene. So the thing that I'm thinking about, we know we're going to be here for a while, is are we going to evacuate or protect in place? Should our tactics as a fire department be focusing on getting the people out, maybe knocking on doors and keeping people in, or perhaps getting into water supply? Because he said there was a hydrant there, but depending on where the exposures are and how close it is to the building, let's say you're a small volunteer fire department, you got 3 members showing up. Are you going to fight the fire or get people out of their homes? Right? This is the things you got to think about. I've trained large fire departments, I've trained small fire departments, and those tactics will be different. Justin, if I can put you on the spot just as a responder, forget the fact that you're the proctor right now. What do you think is a challenge for a department your size? You only have a handful of firefighters. Would you struggle as that firefighter going, man, should we catch the hydrant or should we just make sure that people are safe in the house because the vehicle might not be impinging on a house yet? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
You're assuming we have hydrants. Our hydrant might be the tanker we're nursing from, right?
Take a shuttle.
Good point.
Right. So,
Justin, can I throw this out there? And again, people don't always agree with my tactics, but this is an option, and Justin may agree or disagree. If you had that vehicle impinging on the house and you didn't have a good water supply, would you dump that friggin' tank? Would you grab a smooth bore or someone get on the deck gun and maybe just dump the tank to just minimize any exposure by knocking the fire down as best as you can while you wait for water supply? Because sometimes that goes against SOGs where they go, well, we shouldn't flow water until we have a secure water supply. So what would your thoughts on that be? Like, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul in that situation.
right. Well, anytime we're rolling out, so we're looking at 500 in our pumper,
Yeah.
2,000 in our tanker, right? So that's going to give us some time. It's not going to give us a whole lot of time.
Not.
And we know based off a mutual aid call, you could be 10 minutes if you're lucky, right? To a second one. And then from there, how close is your nearest hydrant, your nearest fill up, right? So that's a gamble, right?
It's a
Do you
gamble.
unload that entire deck gun and empty that tank or two that maybe you're nursing from? Or do you get in there with a smaller line and start protecting that house and just dumping water on the front of it, right? Doing what you can. And hopefully you're running Peter's product there, right? So it's sticking better
I
and you're
just
not
put that
losing
in
all
the
that
chat.
water down the driveway.
Are we flowing water? Do we got eco gel? And again, hey, Peter said that his product's so environmentally friendly. There's a rumor that one of his volunteer firefighters actually ate some of his gel one night. So I think I heard that too.
Time to slime it.
I'll just point out that for a rural fire department or any time you're dealing with a limited water supply, the gel is essentially a force multiplier. It'll let you do about 4 times as much fire suppression with the same amount of water.
Having those options, and then again, if you don't have the eco gel, if you don't have something environmentally friendly, let's say it's one of those real bad non-environmentally friendly foams that a fire department might be using, you want to have options for your sewer drains, right? You got our MagnaSeal here, dropping that down on sewer drains or any type of rubber mats or drain covers, diking and damming against ditches. Like, again, I'm not saying you're doing this every time because you have to have the staff to do this. And one thing I did learn at Chris's conference years ago is that the EPA in the US said that technically not all battery fires, when you flow water, is considered an environmental hazard. What I mean by that is you can test for it. Grab some pH paper, grab a pool strip, grab something to see if that product is more acidic or basic before implementing crews to use a magnet or something to block the sewer drains. Again, I'm not saying it's perfect, but you're providing your own risk assessment and options. Gotta try to keep this magnet away from my laptop. It's a big one.
On the top. It'll be good.
Again, guys, we're just throwing out ideas here. A lot of these things, depending on the fire department staff, level of training, competency, they might choose the let it burn option. But if you look at Justin's other inputs, there were some things that he mentioned. Close to a garden shed, close to a house, a hydrant on scene. Like, you have to look at every situation differently and come up with that risk assessment. Other things that I have on my sheet here is I go, okay, well, can I check the temperature of different exposures? Can I use an air monitor to see what that air quality is like in different areas of the building or of the area, right? Because remember, evacuating versus protecting in place is an option. You may not want people to come outside. Why would we maybe not want people to come outside of this situation and we knock on the door, tell them to turn off the HVAC system and stay in place? Why is this fire different where we don't want people outside? And compare this to what the heck's going on today.
Yeah. You got those gases.
Yeah, gases, respiratory issues. Yeah.
So again, you don't always evacuate. This is a hazmat gas, not campfire smoke when you're making some s'mores at home with the family, right? What do you got there for inputs, Justin, for some other steps?
Right. Well, one thing we really didn't discuss too, right? We looked at setup. We've got the driver. What information can we gather from the driver? Like, has this been charging all day?
Oh, yeah, the
Did
state
you
of
just
charge.
plug
Yes.
it in? What is our state of charge on this thing? Because that's going to give us a sense of, Is this a 24-hour call or an 8-hour call? What are we looking at here?
Yep.
Right?
Can you drag the car out of the driveway, put it in the street, move it away from structures?
That is a tactic. And again, many fire departments go, well, that's not our job. We'll get a tow operator to do that. Okay. After we've learned about the toxic gases, do you want your tow operator in there hooking up to that vehicle or trying to find a way to pull it out? That is a fire department task. So again, I want many people here today, whether you're from Southwestern Ontario to other parts of the US, get a chain on that fire truck, get some kind of come-alongs, get something that you can use to keep your distance from that vehicle to at least pull it away from that building 5 to 10 feet. We're not pulling it all the way down the street. We're pulling it just enough to manage any type of exposure protection, not only if it goes into thermal runaway, but if it goes into thermal runaway and rekindles again. That's the point. You can put the wet stuff on the red stuff. You can use eco gel. You can use a fire blanket to temporarily manage that vehicle. I call that suppressing the fire, not extinguishing it. It's not really extinguished yet because we know the chances of rekindle from the interior battery modules. We don't know the condition of these batteries. Is there other batteries that are damaged or still under some type of heat inside that module that we don't know about? Absolutely. And that's the chance for a rekindle. And there's been reports, I believe it was down in Florida, Chris, after some of the hurricanes, because of salt water and other risks to the vehicles, the heat and the salt water, 9 months later, they were getting rekindles of some of these vehicles sitting in salvage yards and other body shops.
Yeah, it's the after effect after you've been trying to protect exposures and you're spraying water on it for 40,000 gallons. What other impact have you done to the battery pack that's going to trigger something later on?
It's true. It's true. So I'm glad you brought that up, Justin. Again, state of charge is big. Air monitoring, thermal imaging camera checks. So not just on the fire itself, but in and around the batteries, because we don't know what other batteries in those packs have been compromised yet to that we may need to keep an eye on or possibly cool, right? What do you got for an input there, Justin?
Okay, well, we'll add to it here. So now we have a second occupant that was interior of the house. They've come out to let us know that the car was indeed plugged in. So we do have the car that is on fire and it is connected in the garage underneath the door. It's been plugged into the charger there.
So is our conversation getting into removal of or unplugging a battery charger while it is still in the mix, while there's still an incident happening? Is that a consideration? Yeah.
Yeah. Could we go interior? Could we flip the switch from the inside?
Good question too. Is there any other ways that we can shut it off on the exteriors? Is there an exterior emergency switch on the outside of the house, maybe near an electrical panel or a gas meter or something else that could be nearby with other utilities?
Yeah, there could be in this situation. We have above ground power and it is coming into the Bravo side of the house. So it is coming in on that side of the house.
Okay.
If it's 60 amp or more, then it has to have its own shut off.
Oh, okay. Finding that shut off could be a challenge, right? Inside, outside.
It'd be clearly marked, at least down here.
Yeah.
Anything goes up in Ontario.
Well, wouldn't you know it? Now, when it comes to the overall risk, now here's something that I learned. When I first started running all these battery calls in the city, you would assume that a lot of these calls would happen when the battery's on the charger, an e-bike, an e-scooter, an EV that's plugged in. That is not the case. We are finding now that the potential energy in these batteries, whether it's on the charger or not, most of the time is not when it's under load, which means it's not being driven, not being used, or not on the charger, which surprised the heck out of me. The majority of fires I go to, that vehicle is not plugged in and it is not on a charger or it's not being driven, which means which tells me that depending on the internal components of that battery or the overall damage, end of life, you name it, the risk is always there. We assume the risk comes from interacting and moving power from one way to another through the use of a charger, through a child driving an e-bike or someone riding an EV down the road. But the more I've run these calls, the more I realize it's not the case. There's other variables there. As a
New ones
fire,
that they've come out with, Adam,
yeah,
is the fact that the most center of the battery pack has the highest amount of heat for charging and decharging while you're using it. And so they're the more common ones that are going to fail is in the center of the battery pack.
oh, geez, I didn't even know that. Wow, that makes sense. That makes sense. So there might be hesitancy, for example, as a fire crew. Oh, do we disconnect it? I'm not trained in that charging system. I shouldn't touch a switch I'm not supposed to touch. At the end of the day, we do want first responders to remember that there's a level of risk to this job. We carry a badge for a reason. We have certain levels of PPE, our helmets, our gloves, our bunker gear, or their moisture, thermal, and outer layers, okay? We have to use those levels of PPE sometimes. And that risk that comes from shutting down a system that we might not be comfortable with, you don't have to be electricians to be able to provide options to mitigate an emergency if you have to. It's no different than a firefighter shutting down, a natural gas line if they can, or turning on or turning off a sprinkler system, or resetting a fire alarm panel. We really have to consider that if there is an emergency in place, we shut down what we can find and what we can see. And I will say this and hope for the best, because doing nothing is not acceptable when you have power going into a home, into a vehicle, or other things. And I think that hesitancy, whether we're trained or not, has limited some firefighters' scope and skills, in my opinion, because people don't want to make things worse or get hurt. Oh, what if I'm liable? Yeah, but what if you don't do anything? And that's the challenge that I find that even I have, whether it's as a firefighter or instructor, because we don't know enough about these new technologies, right? You go back to the hazmat CVR&E game. When you go into a drug lab, for example, not that many of you on here would have any in your house, I would hope. We know that we're not supposed to turn on or turn off the electrical power to that unit. We don't want to flip a switch. We don't want to shut things off because of the risks that go with that. Now, that's specific to a hazmat in that type of drug lab or chemical lab. But is that different than how we would treat a fire with a solar panel, a battery energy storage system, or an EV? Yes, it is. But it's about knowing the risks, doing a proper risk assessment before taking action on that. I've seen it. I've seen captains say, well, we don't know about these ventilation systems, so we shouldn't turn that switch on. Hey, well, it's worth a shot, Captain. Well, we shouldn't shut off the sprinkler system because what if it shuts off water to the whole building and then we have to do a fire watch? Well, we got 5 fire trucks sitting out front with water, Chief. I think we'll be okay for about an hour. These are the liability questions that I see chiefs, company officers, and others ask themselves before doing simple tasks like that. Asking a firefighter to go in and start flipping switches on panels, e-stops, or other things, whether it's on a charger or other entities in a residential home, that might be a lot to ask of a junior firefighting crew. So you got to go risk versus reward. What happens if you don't do anything?
Liability there.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of action is negligence.
Lack of action is negligence, and we need to keep that in mind. Anything else there, Justin, to kind of finish up a bit with the snare? I know we've got a lot of great talking points there for sure.
No, I think that covered the majority of what we would need to consider in those moments, and just being aware. I mean, that initial primary search, look around your 360, that's super important in knowing kind of what you're looking at, and then that goes along with knowing your neighborhood and knowing, doing those site visits and just understanding what's out there.
That's exactly what it is. I guess talking to Chris already, it sounds like your community is currently taking steps in different areas, from the EV training and response to the battery chargers Placarding's another big one, whether it's a Class 9 miscellaneous or the push right now with our good friend Chris Pfaff at Hazmat and Rescue and Patrick Durham looking to push a Class 10 placard specific for batteries. There's talk about that, to differentiating a miscellaneous hazmat from a standalone lithium-ion battery event. Anything else, Chris, that you want to maybe explain to the group on what your community is doing that might be a little bit different in your state compared to a New York or a Toronto?
I think just trying to put as many pieces of information out there, more labelings for residential. You got enough to deal with a fire. Does this place have EV charger? Does it have 4 10 kilowatt ESS batteries on the inside of the garage or on the exterior of the house that you got to worry about? And again, same thing, like we're going through with Amazon, going to electric delivery vehicles. So we're talking about 30 chargers in their yard. And again, my mandate is that each one has to have its own shut off. And then there's got to be a master shut off somewhere away that'll kill the entire bank, so that fire rescue has an ability to protect themselves. And if you don't reach out to your fire marshal and your inspectors and all the rest of that and try to push to get these things updated and moving in the right direction for us, then every scene you go to is a hazard.
Tom, question there. Oh, sorry, Justin.
Yeah, Chris, a question for you. Do they have to notify or put anything up if they're going to use their vehicle and feed it back into their house? Right. So to avoid the whole solar panel thing, go charge your car at work, bring it home and power your house at night. Right.
There's been situations with that too. And that's exactly it, especially with your Ford Lightning pickup trucks and all the rest of that. You don't need a generator when you've got a vehicle out in the yard that you can, start up every now and again and, and feed into the house and run whatever. And that's part of the other problem is if you don't do a proper 360, you get yourself into a lot of trouble very quickly. And that's not recognizing, it's just a truck in the yard. You're not thinking, is it EV? Is it a hybrid? What hazard does that present to our response and our crew?
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's that big of a problem, Chris, because if you're a cheap firefighter who charges up your EV at the fire station, then you bring it home and power your house with it. I mean, come on, firefighters love that.
Well, if you got to wait for your fire truck to be fully charged before you can respond, then there's no problem.
Oh, jeez. Tom, what were you going to say, pal?
Yeah, well, just to close the loop on the charger discussion, because that was sort of the topic of the day.
Mm-hmm.
What would be best in class suggestions for like an office building and around their charging, where to put the chargers, how to organize them?
It's funny you mentioned that, because before I was doing a bit of research before we started tonight, I got these bulletins here for EV charging systems. Again, just looking at different content out there, things that I've seen, Tom, and Chris and others, if you have opinions too, the bullards, the safety around them so people can't touch them with a vehicle, the distance from the building, the distance from other types of electric vehicles, the distance from underground versus exterior options where they're installed, distances for emergency shutoffs. So, for example, I believe it's in Kentucky, they say for every charging station they have within 50 feet, they require a large fire blanket. Now, that's not for citizens of the community. That's for the fire department to use when they arrive, either for the EV that's on fire beside the charger or the charger itself. So I've seen it more from a prevention standpoint. I wouldn't know enough about the electrical code per se. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff here on the electrical codes too, from a maximum output to circuit breaker locations and other things. But from what I've seen, Tom, it's the location, the safety and prevention around it from those chargers being physically damaged in any way, and distances from any exposures. Well, what have you seen, Chris?
Here's one for you. How many of your gas stations have you seen with EV charging systems going in proximity to the dispensers and, of course, the underground tanks? It's one of the things that we've addressed. And again, we've seen it here in our county, and we've been pushing to move it as far away from that location as possible, and that to again, separate. Because, once you got one running, and if you're only 50 foot from a dispenser, you got bigger problems going on.
Again, it's the considerations, right?
Yep.
No, and again, so fire departments aren't prepared, and I will be blunt about that. Whether it's a tactic in dealing with an EV or a battery charger that's underground on the P3 level, removing an e-bike from the 7th floor of a high rise. Do you take the elevators? Do you take the stairs? Do you get the squad team to come in and throw a rope around it and lower it down so it's not in the vehicle? In the building for any longer than it has to be. You know, these are little considerations based on the risk that unfortunately we're learning from real world incidents. We're learning from Surprise, Arizona and the battery energy storage system explosion. We're learning from the 3 or 4 people killed in the Tesla accident that happened under the Gardner last year. You know, we're seeing the hurricanes in Florida and Hawaii, to the wildfires that happened in California in the Palisades, which is the world's largest lithium-ion battery cleanup in history that we're still continuing to learn from. So I think right now, again, coming together like this as a group and having these discussions is huge. And I can tell you, 99% of the topics and content and ideas that we discussed tonight, many fire departments are not even using yet. They're not. I've seen that in my training. I've seen that when I go to conferences, right? People go to get this extra training, extra content for a reason, because their local fire department members, chiefs, and politicians haven't pushed anything forward from a guideline perspective to have anything set in stone. There is no silver bullet when it comes to dealing with electric vehicles and lithium-ion batteries and these charger incidents. We have to be flexible and adaptable and learn from others, learn from different codes and ordinances that are happening in Florida to New York City to property managers here in Toronto outright banning e-bikes from buildings or having them in standalone concrete encased storage areas that are fully sprinklered. And a handful of buildings are doing that too. Having on-site fire blankets, having electric vehicle parking areas that are restricted to certain locations only. Not everybody's doing this, but we're learning from different ideas that are being passed along from state to state, province to province, or country to country. Well, lots of good discussions here tonight. It really is. You know, it's about 20 after 9. Again, we're always looking for ideas, guys, on different topics. I think, not to speak for the group, but I think maybe in the next couple of months we should get back to some hazmat response type considerations, right? I mean, we see it with rail cars, we see it with fixed facility incidents, and these are things that are having a big impact on communities that more than just the first responders need to be involved. And the insurance companies, the politicians, and others. So again, that could be a topic. You know, we're of course always looking at different types of fires for sure, from high rise to commercial properties. But if you guys have ideas, please reach out to Tom, Justin, Peter, and myself, and we can continue to put together some great content to have these discussions. Like, I really think it's important. Any feedback, Justin, from tonight? What were your thoughts overall?
No, this was great. A lot of great conversations. Everybody did great during the scenario. I think we kind of nailed that one with the limited personnel that we had. Unlike you Toronto folk, where you have 150 firefighters show up to get that poor little kitty out of the tree.
Hey, I was exhausted the other day. I was at a fire for 3 hours. I think I went through one whole air bottle. Yeah, I was really tired.
Ooh, jeez. But that was a 45-minute bottle, right?
Yeah, but I was in rehab for 2.5 hours, eating Snickers and having Gatorade. But anyway, no, lots of fun here, though, guys. Again, I always appreciate getting together with the Alliance group and just having these discussions with the equipment side, the tools, the technology. Again, like I said, if there's anything you need from us, please feel free to reach out. Just a couple little notes. I'm doing a high-rise class August 4th. That's a paid class, but for anybody that was here tonight, you're welcome to jump in for free. So just send me an email for that. Something kind of cool as well. I'm going down to Oklahoma later this year. We're doing this big EV Academy with my friend Chris Pfaff and Stash Training. Doing some stuff here in Ontario too. I know I invited Justin, Peter, you're invited as well. North Shore, which is north of Manitoulin. Obviously, it's a little bit smoky up there right now. This September, I'm actually doing a free EV class, and a government grant paid for that. So again, don't tell everybody, but those that are here on this chat, if you're interested in making the drive up the Blind River, doing a big class. My buddy Aaron, formerly of Firehouse Training with Trans Canada Safety, he'll be coming with some equipment. Hopefully, Peter can come up, maybe do a demo. Justin, hopefully, again, bring the wife and the kids. This is the kind of stuff that we can network and still do some good practical training. Firefighter Association of Ontario in Kingston later on in October. I'm there doing another free EV class. Again, you're hearing it from the horse's mouth. You don't have to pay for all this training. There's some cool opportunities just by being in touch with us as a group. So please reach out to us and we can give you some of those dates and times. I know Tom's always up for a drive. He's joined me in Northern Ontario before for other things. So you wouldn't really know about these opportunities until you kind of have these relationships built. So again, something to think about. And hopefully Peter can join us, Justin and others, and I'll give everybody those dates. I don't usually publish that stuff on my social media though, because I don't really want everyone coming out unless you're kind of a part of this part of this group. But yeah, no, so again, thank you so much, everybody. If there's anything else, please feel free to reach out. Justin, anything else before you say it? Tom, anything else?
No, all good. Thanks for attending.
Yep. We'll send out the recording to everybody as well. Tom will have that posted on the website in the next few days, and keep an eye out for our next free training event, probably in the next few months. Thanks again, everybody. Good to see you, Chris. Both Chris's.
Good night, everybody.
Good to see you guys. Thanks, Pete.